Whilst I've got you here, Jeff, it's been sort of quite a bit of comments on Twitter and letters to the Racing Post and so on, with punters finding it difficult to get bets on with bookies. What's your stance on that, both sort of from your own business point of view and an industry point of view?
You've got to, unfortunately, these days, we've all got to be realistic about the situation now. In an exchange world, it will be harder to get the kind of amounts that customers will be looking to back, especially when they're betting each way, and an exchange market on place books is virtually invisible and is often a sixth and a seventh of the odds anyway of the win price. So it's far more difficult these days. If you're going to be realistic about prices and you want the top of the market, expect to get less on. It's a simple fact of life. And the second factor, of course, is that the big firms employ a lot less skilled traders these days. I mean, I hate to say when I grew up in the game, but it is true. When I grew up in the game, the kind of traders that one would be constantly battling against to get money on, for say, from my father or whatever, had been in the game for as long as him. 20, 30 years and everything else like that, and were incredibly experienced men. They would price books up to sustainable margins, and they would have a good business plan. They knew what they were about. But these days, what's employed by many of the big firms are essentially people who have a vague idea of form. Yeah, there's likes of the people that that we're interviewing today. They're good form judges. I mean, it doesn't require any skill to do that. And
so they're taking prices from a source rather than actually coming up with prices from form and from their knowledge and so on.
It's got no respect whatsoever. If J.P. McManus and John Joe O'Neill were running a horse today, it would mean nothing to these to these traders in the big firms. I mean, it really doesn't, because they know they're not going to lay 50,000 to something or 100,000. It's not going to happen. They're not going to be laying it. So all they do is mirror Betfair. And Betfair, of course, it can be with low liquidity levels. The other problem, of course, is that it's easy to manipulate that market. The exchange is very, very easy to manipulate, particularly in the morning. So the problem is that if you've got all these big firms employing low grade fodder doing these kind of roles, following Betfair, and Betfair's only got £20 available, and that is true a lot of the time in the morning. It's even for well fancied favourites on big races. You can only see £100. Well, I mean, you've got to get things into perspective. Most punters, I would say, happy to have 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds on a horse, and that will be enough. But that's not true of everybody. Some people want to have 5, 10 grand, 2 grand, £1,500 each way on a horse, whatever. Especially if you're an owner, you want to be backing your horses. Well, then you're going to struggle to get on, because there's no liquidity on exchanges whatsoever. Many of the complaints levelled at bookmakers about about their prices and what they will do and what they won't do are never levelled at exchanges.
On the plus side, though, the big firms are offering quite a few concessions these days. If your horse finishes second to the favourites, or even if your horse just finishes second, money back, and those kind of offers. What do you make of those?
Well, they're all. Paddy Power leads the field in all these kind of offers. Every time they sort of do something like that, they're knocking 5 or 6% off their bottom line. It is. I envisage a situation where a number of middle pins in betting, the likes of, I would say, if out of the big three, I would say Corals would be the first one to go. And there will be a number of middle pins in independent bookmaking, who will be under pressure from firms like Corals and William Hill, who are clearly the two biggest firms, and Ladbrokes, of course. But you see that these offers are bent on a market share war where they gain as many customers as possible with these dangly offers.
Some firms are gaining new punters through the offers. Then what you're saying is that other firms are going to suffer because they're losing punters.
But the difference is these days, and this is what Mr. Paddy Power, if there was a Mr. Paddy Power, is forgetting, is that punters these days, customers can be afford to be tremendously fickle. You don't have to run down to a paper shop to buy a paper these days. You can do it on the internet. You can do anything on the internet. So these offers are only as long as they are on the plate. As soon as Paddy Power stop offering all these untenable, because that's what they are untenable. They cost a lot of money. I mean, I think their I think their offer in the Supreme Novices last year cost them $1 million. I think it was the Supreme Novices cost them $1 million in returning, cash to customers who had bets and whatever, and they guaranteed that if the favourite didn't win, they would give them their money back or got beaten by the favourite. Whatever the offer was, cost them $1 million. It's a lot of money. It's an awful lot of money. But these firms, these offers, the customers themselves are fickle. They will only remain with those companies for as long as those offers keep coming. And as soon as those offers dry up, they'll just move on to the next one.
Thank you, Jeff. That's great.